Ezekiel Norman, followed by Peggy Griffin. And if you could be ready to come, I'll try to give you a bit of a cue. Following that will be Stephen Scharf. Ezekiel, welcome.
Okay, hi. So I just press this button.
You go ahead.
Every day it's the same. It's a rush towards the cafeteria line, hoping there will be food left for me. I see other children sprinting from different directions, trying to get some delicious cafeteria food. Luckily, I found myself in the middle of the line, so I won't be hungry during class and it won't be so hard for me to concentrate. Today I got lucky, but I'm not sure about tomorrow. Good evening, my name is Ezekiel Norman. I live in Cupertino and attend Miller Middle School. Today I will talk to you about the overcrowdedness at Cupertino schools. Why is it so hard to get a chance to get in line for lunch? The population of classmates have increased by a lot, so there's a very low chance of getting food. Now students are constantly rushing towards the line because there are some foods that are worth eating and others not so much. I feel very rushed whenever it is lunchtime. Sometimes I just see my friends walk to the table with no lunch because they couldn't get the food. Not only do we have to adjust to the Hunger Act, making all meal portions smaller, but now there are too many students and not enough food. Oftenly, many activities are limited because of the amount of students we have, such as basketball. I love playing basketball, but the courts are always taken because there are 1,000 students and 5 basketball courts. Sometimes I get to play basketball, but when I do, I see other children sadly watching those who are playing. Many children like to play basketball, and I am one of them. Whenever I look over the basketball courts, I see children laughing, joking, playing basketball. Then I realize there is no basketball court left for me to play in. You may be wondering why I can't just go play with the other kids. Well, first, once I start a game, they don't pause it so no one else like me can join. Secondly, I'm in a Chinese immersion program, so people don't really welcome me. Finally, the traffic is very dangerous. I have an extra period in the morning, so it is very difficult to get to school in the morning, especially with the traffic. The traffic is very bad because many people and hundreds of students are going to school. The roads are full of people driving, and many students are either riding a bike or walking, so accidents can occur. Because many people are rushing to go to work or taking their kids to school, accidents can easily occur. For example, my best friend Gavin lost his brother due to a tragic bike accident because of the rush in the morning. If there are fewer people living in Cupertino, I would have the chance to play basketball, because the amount of people who play basketball would decrease. Riding my bike to school would be safer, and I could finally get a good lunch. Sometimes I wonder if adults are really thinking about us, the kids. This concludes my speech on overcrowdedness.
Thank you, Ezekiel. Next we have Peggy Griffin, followed by Stephen Scharf.
My name is Peggy Griffin, and I live in Cupertino. The situation Ezekiel has described applies to all schools in Cupertino. This is a particular issue for students attending middle schools and high schools. Middle school students aren't allowed to leave campus, so they have to rely on on-campus cafeteria. In the June 2014 draft EIR, it states that the CUSD schools are already over capacity in 2013. Elementary schools are over capacity by almost 1,300 students. That's 2.5 elementary schools. Middle schools are over capacity by over 1,450 students. That's about 1.5 middle schools. The conclusion in the EIR states that building 2-story classrooms will solve the problems. But a school is not made up of just classrooms. They also consist of the facilities needed to serve the larger student population. Facilities like libraries, labs, cafeterias, lockers, gyms, auditoriums, playground areas, daycare facilities, teacher, staff, and student parking lots, additional drop-off and pickup zones. They don't take into account the lost opportunities to participate in sports because many sports have a fixed number of team members. They don't take into consideration account for the lost feeling of community a smaller school provides, especially for younger students. Although the state law mandates that the city cannot reject a project based solely on school impact alone, you can choose not to rezone a property to allow housing. You can choose not to concentrate housing increases in just one area. You can consider parkland. Adding portables to school playground areas reduces our parks. You can consider traffic and safety. We are asking you to develop our city sensibly and sustainably by preserving our existing zoning and allowing those that want exceptions to use our current laws and procedures to do so. This requires a plan to be presented and allows for community input before any rezoning is permitted. You can do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. And next, Stephen Scharf, followed by John Willie, and he will be followed by Liang Fang Chow.
Let me first say to Ezekiel, I feel your pain because I had that conversation with my son for about 3 years, every day home from Lawson. What did you have for lunch? I wasn't fast enough to get in line. There was nothing left. So I don't know who can fix that school lunch problem, certainly not the city council, but you certainly have the power to make it a lot worse. A few months ago, Polly Bovey spoke at a meeting over at Quinlan, and she said that Fremont Union knows how to cram more students into the school and make them feel small, quote. Now, I don't know how many people believe that ludicrous statement, hopefully not many, but anyone that's had a child in our middle schools or high schools recently knows how ridiculous that is. But what does this have to do with the city council? They don't run the schools. However, the schools fit in all these extra students is of no concern to them, apparently, but it should be. What the city council does is to decide which parcels can be rezoned for more office and then for the additional housing that is mandated due to the additional office. Do we have the projector? So 3.5 million square feet of office is proposed in option C in the GPA, is equivalent to about 7 Transamerica buildings. Now, how many workers does that hold? Well, according to the Commercial Real Estate Development Association, 151 square feet per worker is what office space is expected to house. So that translates to about 23,000 additional workers. Now, what does ABAG say? And other agencies across the state. ABAG's actually pretty good. Their metric is 1.5 people per housing unit, while in Southern California it's as low as 1.4. So we'll just have to start building some more high-rise housing because those 23,000 workers will need 15,500 housing units. Now, are those people going to have any kids? Well, they moved to Cupertino because of the schools. So let's look what the schools will look like. Here, class, because of Cupertino's enormous growth, we'll be welcoming some new students today. How many new students? Oh, those 15,000 units would generate about 24,000 students. And this is based on studies done at Montebello, Verona, Trevigna, and Metropolitan as far as how many students actually were in the units, not the false numbers that developers are fond of using. So how are we going to house those students? Well, we all know how we house the students. It's always the same. It would take about 900 classrooms to house all those students, and there's no money to build new schools and no land, so it's always more portables. It's always the same. So the city council can prevent the devastation of our schools by not approving these vast quantities of new office space that lead to more housing. And cities were designed for land use that was balanced between housing, retail, commercial, schools, and you can't keep upsetting that balance and not look at the long-term consequences. But there's entities that profit from altering that zoning. They profit big time, and they have a lot of influence and a lot of money, and they do a lot of things that maybe aren't so ethical. So I just hope the city council does not let these developers get away with their plans to destroy Cupertino. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. John Willie, followed by Liang Fang Chow. I'm still seeing black here, John.
Okay. Great.
Here we go. Okay.
Hi, Councilman. With the prospect of changing the general plan rapidly approaching, essentially at the next council meeting, and I believe that the most important factor needs to be the preferences of the residents. Specifically, the city implemented a survey on building planes and building heights, and I want to be sure we keep that in mind. The building heights, what we currently have, mostly 1.5 to 1 and some 1 to 1, or changing the 1.5 to 1, changing it to 1 to 1. But what did the current residents say in the survey? Over 50% said no change in building planes, no change in heights. I want to be sure we keep that in mind when we start thinking about the change in the general plan at the next meeting. I passed out copies of unedited survey that I did screen captures from at the last one. I've underlined and made it easy to breeze through, you know, in terms of what the residents have wanted. I prefer a suburban feel, the city look. You know, they've said what they want. Let's not forget what it is. So hopefully you'll review those and keep those on your desk when you are deciding what to do about changing the general plan. Thank you.
Thank you, John. So I think there is some news with regard to when we're bringing back the general plan amendment, and I thought I'd have our city manager comment on that for the benefit of the public.
Yeah, we'll be noticing that hearing, renoticing that hearing for May the 19th.
So we're going to be doing the general plan amendment on May the 19th rather than
April the 21st.
And do you have any explanation to help the public understand why?
Well, council had an interest in knowing more details about the potential community benefits program, and staff is developing more details around that.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you. So now Liang Fang Chow and Arthur Liu.
I send a PowerPoint over. Thank you. I'm glad that you delayed the general plan till May 19th. Well, why rush? Why not delay it further until year 2020? We have so much ongoing construction in Cupertino. Everything, we'll have Apple spaceship, you'll have Main Street, a lot of ongoing construction. We don't even know what will be the impact after everyone is moved in. Why rush? Wait until year 2020. Some think Cupertino hasn't been growing much, but in the market study of GPA, it shows from US Census data, Cupertino has been growing in almost 3 times as fast as Bay Area. We have 1.4% annual growth. Bay Area has only 0.5%. And let's look at EIR report. EIR report actually has a really good estimation of the current state of Cupertino. Air quality, it's significant and unavoidable. There is no way to mitigate air quality. Noise, significant and unavoidable. And transportation and traffic, the same thing. There is no way to mitigate the current situation. If you keep building, what Cupertino will become? Uncontrolled growth. The current jobs in Cupertino is about 32,000. There is the 80% net inflow of workers coming from out of the city. With Apple II Main Street, there is already more than 14,000 workers. And now the GPA is proposing to add 3.5 million square feet of office, which would house 23,200 more workers. And these many workers, according to the statistic, 80% of them would come from outside of Cupertino. Imagine the traffic. Imagine the traffic on 280. Imagine the traffic on 85. Current situation is already cannot be mitigated. Now we are doubling, tripling that. More jobs means more housing. More housing would bring more school kids. And our poor kids, where are we going to put them? 3-level classrooms, 3-level basketball court, and more traffic and more accident. Uncontrolled growth would make everything unimaginable and disastrous. Thank you. So why rush? Let's wait until year 2020. General plan from 2005 is in effect until year 2020. Why are we rushing? What's pushing it? What's really pushing it?
Thank you.
What are we running against? Thank you.
And I'd invite any of you who have done these presentations, you know, the slides go by quickly, so please feel free to send your presentations to all of us on the council, because we do read our correspondence, even if we don't have time to respond to each one, but we are interested in your facts, figures, and statistics, I assure you.
Okay.
Arthur,
Yeah,
after you is Zhaowen Wang,
Okay, good evening, everyone.
followed by Lisa Warren.
So today I'm talking about one is a scorecard, one is a PDA. And thank you for Council Chen. I remove my mistake. Thank you for your point out my mistake. Thank you for Council Wang. But I put the meeting minutes here. I like to relate to the date on the city's meeting minutes. Although this decision is on December 4th, but actually the meeting minutes is December 3rd. Okay, so we'll continue to do this scorecard if city is still not willing to do that. Okay, and the second topic I want to talk is about the PDA. I'm not sure if you know what is the PDA. PDA is priority development area, and this is I copy from the ABAC from their government website. So they say the PDA is nominated by the city or town council via resolution, and meet to day-to-day needs, and so their purpose is to provide a comparable bus service and plan more housing, and that will bring concentrate housing and job growth in this priority development area. And I talked to city staff, but I'm not satisfied with city staff's answer. She told me that the PDA is assigned by the VTA, but actually I don't think that's the right answer. So I couldn't find the PDA information in Cupertino's city database before 2012. But after 2012, suddenly the PDA is showing in those documents. And this is a letter by ABAC to Cupertino City. They suggest, Cupertino to have a PDA in this area. So it's basically Stevens Creek from 85 to Lawrence, Deanza from Stevens Creek to Homestead. And again, what I showed in the last slide is PDA actually is assigned by the local government, not the VTA. Okay. Is there any way you can put it a little bit smaller? Thank you. Thank you, Gary. Okay. So who decide Cupertino PDA? I believe it's City Council and the rest, right? But somehow the information I found is April 18, 2012, the APEC sent a letter to Cupertino City. In June 13, Cupertino City replied APEC and say we support the PDA. But in between, I couldn't find any planning commission meeting minutes, any city council meeting minutes to talk about the PDA. And nobody in this Cupertino community know what is PDA. Nobody knows. Yeah, until right now, I believe most of them don't know what is PDA. okay? And your staff told me August 14, they are discussing about a PDA, but August 14 already, the city already showed they're willing to support a PDA. So my question is, why the PDA is not discussion in between the Planning Commission and City Council, and only decided by the, city staff? And why is no notification to community? And who authorized city manager can write a letter to ABAC to support a PDA?
Thank you.
Okay, I wish you can help to answer that.
It's an interesting question. Thank you. Does staff have any comment on this, or is this something that needs to be looked into? Or is this more appropriate when we get to the GPA? Or no?
Yeah,
this is sort of
it's probably a complicated answer, and
okay.
Largely happened before I got here, so I don't know the details of
okay.
who, what, when, and who was informed. But
okay.
VTA did nominate that area as a PDA back in 2012.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I think, David, you are in my email copy, so you can get my information on the touch file. I attach all the information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Zhao Wen Wang, followed by Lisa Warren. Zhao Wen Wang, Lisa Warren, and Lisa will be followed by Govind Tatachari, who is our last speaker.
Hi. So I'm here to talk about briefly about a few things. First of all, something new that came up with the proclamation of Arbor Day. I just want to point out, with all those whereases in the proclamation and the ending statements about supporting efforts to protect our urban forests, I really, really, really hope that you all do that moving forward, because some of our urban forests have been unnecessarily taken away from us. There's a property owner that has a lot more trees that we need to keep an eye on. I also have a question about when will the re-noticing occur for, will that happen before April 21st to renotice the GPA item for May 19th?
I don't know the exact date that notice is required. It will be noticed most likely before the 21st, yeah.
I would hope so, because you've already announced it. It's known. There's no reason not to notice it immediately and not wait for people to come on the 21st and be surprised. Originally on tonight's agenda, which got postponed, is the Main Street ASAs, which is the site approvals for the last two buildings on the project, and that's the main retail and the Shop 6. Over a year ago, there was a lot of discussion, thankfully, but not by a lot of people, about how what is actually the look and feel of Main Street is not truly what it was sold as in 2012. And I just want to read the architectural site approval quote from the resolution of that approval in 2012, which says, "The buildings, site development, and architecture shall substantially conform to the site plan elevations and details as shown in the approved exhibits, unless otherwise noted." The approved exhibits, anyone, and there's several of you in here that are well aware of what those were, it's not necessarily looking like it was supposed to in many ways, and this is the last set of buildings that will be approved. Apparently May 4th will be considered, and I just want to point out that they also do not substantially conform to what was approved. So it's a chance to make some efforts in fixing that. These will be one side of the entry from Stevens Creek, and the other is the more agrarian feel, which is what the whole thing was promised to look like. And yes, granted, we went away from it gradually over time because people changed, planners left, new planners, new city council, new architects even. So things get dropped, but this is, to me, does not at all match the gateway into this entry, which is what was promised all along. This is the main entry into the place. It's going to be flanked by these buildings. It's going to be this great entrance. They're completely different pieces of architecture. Anyway, that's coming.
Thank you.
That's it? Do I have time? One more thing about the Foothill Boulevard project. I just want
We
to
are
support
out.
these people.
We're out.
And thank
You
them
can
for-
speak on that item
Okay.
when that comes forward, if you like. So Govind Tadachari.
Good evening. This is the outline of what I wanted to talk to you about. I still don't see it coming on the screen. Good evening, council members, esteemed mayor, and all city staff. I've come here to speak in terms of one of the concerns that many of us have in this community in terms of what is happening. And I would like to kind of put it in a bad news, good news kind of a fashion so that it's easier for us to understand where we are going and what can be done about it. So the bad news is that we do have an unbalanced ultra-growth plan which has been set in motion already. And it's definitely, there's already inputs within the EIR which says that the quality of life will be impacted for both the current residents as well as the future residents. The good news is we can do something about it. So this is one of the graphics that we got as part of the EIR. And the EIR, they are able to show that there will be significant impacts and the mitigation measures are not foreseeable in terms of releasing the impact that will happen. These kinds of impacts are definitely something which concern everybody, because traffic is common to even people who have school-going kids, not having school-going kids, people who come into the city to transact business, and others. One of the things which I want to bring into point here is that not only in terms of city government, as well as in terms of council of governments and at the state level, we have an issue of something which is called a tragedy, the tragedy of the commons. And that is very evident by looking at the drought situation today. So what we are talking is not kind of hypothetical. It is just happening, and we just need to know that we are always going against kind of limited resources. Then has something good happened? So one of the good things which has happened is there was a proposal in Santa Clara City about extending from 6 stories to 9 stories the building which was on Stevens Creek. And the original, this particular approval is declined. And I am going to quote from that particular approval: the traffic mitigation measures for the entire project, a part of phase 1, reported planning director Kevin Riley, who later noted that there was a limit to Santa Clara's ability to improve traffic on Stevens Creek. We do not have a section of Stevens Creek that's horrendous traffic, and you can read the rest of the thing. So essentially what we are saying is that some things cannot be mitigated. It is not technologically feasible today, and even 25 years from now, the population growth is only going to make it more and more difficult. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a lighter agenda tonight, and so we did have one speaker who stepped out of the room, I guess, but had filled in a blue card to speak, so I'll give her time to speak. Normally, you know, we just move on, but please, Zawin Wang.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
So, good evening, council members. So today I'm here just to talk about our schools. I think I talked about school before. It's just a reminder of my last talk. We talk about all the standard on school facilities that is state standard. Last time I pointed out that in our school impact report, we only consider classroom, which is not right. But nonetheless, classroom is an important part of the school. So today we just look at the classroom situation of our schools. So this is what happens now. Our school is almost all the schools in Cupertino is over capacity. So right now the portables in schools, the situation is like state standard is 20%. And the Cupertino CUSD is at 27%. More eminently is we have 7% of the portables are already over 20 years old. And in this, I'm going to submit today is I have a reference about all the health, environmental, safety issue of all those old portables and portables in all you can reference and read on. And you can see, like, for these three schools, Lincoln, Ragnard, and Sedgwick, just the portables over 20 years old is already over state standard, over 20%. So that's how bad the situation is. So can we have any chance to change the situation? We all know that last year some bond measure passed for the school to improve the facilities. So here is the money about it. So overall, CUSD needs about 93 new classrooms by 2040. That's according to the school report, which has a price tag of $46 million. I also, in the backup, I have referenced how this calculation is done. And the current CUSD measure edge allows the district to collect about $220 million by 2019. And among this bond money, you can go to CUSD website. They have the budgeting for this money. Only $32 million is budgeted for new school buildings only in Cupertino Middle and Lawson Middle. So none of those elementary school portables going to be gone. There's no money for it, basically. At least for this bond money budget, there's $0 going to spend on it. And so we're still about 70 classrooms short and 34.7 million short if we want to improve just the classroom situations. So that's about the classroom here. So here is just a chart of how many classrooms. Okay, so I would submit this. I have all the calculations and the data resources here, so you can reference them.
Yes, we'd love to have a copy. Thank you.